When graphing an equation using a table, it's a lot easier sometimes to solve for y. So in this problem, we're going to solve for y. And if you remember in chapter 1, we did that. Remember, we had a highlighter and we wanted to highlight the variable that we wanted to get by itself, which was y. So pause the video, and if you don't have a highlighter, go get one. Getting that y by itself, I noticed that there's a 3x here. So I'm going to zero that out. We can't move it just over to the other side, and we have to move it mathematically, which means zeroing it out. So it's a positive 3x, so we subtract 3x. If we do it to one side of the equation, we do it to the other. And 3x minus 3x zeroes out, and we're left with y equals, and then we can't put the 7 and the 3x together. If the 7 had an x here, we could do it, but it doesn't. So we have to keep them separate. So I'm going to put my minus 3x first plus 7. And we'll talk about that, why we put that in front in a couple of days. It'll come up here. So now that we have our y equals, we've set it up for an easier way to substitute our numbers we pick for x and calculate our y to get our coordinate pairs so that we can graph that. So now I'm going to show you kind of one that's a little bit trickier that comes up. So if we have 2x minus y equals negative 1. So I'm going to highlight my y, and I want to get y by itself. And as I do that, I'm noticing that I have a minus y. And that's the tricky part here, is that negative. So it's that, well, it's a minus, but we want to change it to a plus a negative 1. And that 1 is that hidden part. And a lot of times if there's a number there, it's easier to see that it's a negative number. But with this one, that negative 1, that hidden 1, is harder to see. So that's that negative 1. So I've got this 2x. So it's now like this one. Don't get it mixed up that it's a minus 2x, because it's not minus 2x, it's minus y. The y minus goes with the one behind it, not the one in front of it. So it's more like the one that we just did up here. So I'm going to subtract 2 from the left side. If I do it to the left, I'm going to do it to the right side. So those zero out, and I'm left with negative 1 y, highlight my y, equals, and negative 2x plus a negative 1. So this time I'm going to keep it as a negative 1 because I kind of see what's happening up here. Now remember that this is a multiply between. So to undo a multiply by a negative 1, we divide by a negative 1. If we do it to one side, we have to do it to the other. But remember, we're going to do it to each term. So this is that negative 1. Each one's going to be divided by negative 1. That's that distributive property. So the negative 1's cancel out over here. So we're left with y, and that's by itself, and it's positive. That's the way we like it. Equals, now negative 2 divided by negative 1. So 2 divided by 1 is 2, and a negative divided by a negative is a positive 2. Bring down my x, bring down my plus, and a negative 1 divided by a negative 1, they do cancel out, so be careful, but the 1 divided by 1 is a 1. So the negatives cancel out to be a positive 1. So our equation is y equals 2x plus 1. And from there we can create our table and choose x's that we want, like 0, 1, 2, negative 1, negative 2, and calculate our y's out by substituting them into our equation and then graphing those points.